Okay, alright, so what we're looking at here is the Pearl S1330B Piccolo snare drum. This is a snare drum that sounds good in the recording studio, but when you're playing live with a band, in my opinion, is just average. Now, first of all, listen to the recording that I've done with it, and then when we come back, we'll get into it in a bit more detail. Okay, so this is a 13-inch snare drum. This is a 13x3 steel snare drum. The finish is a matte black and it looks quite good. And it's got 8 lugs, which for a 13-inch drum, having 8 lugs is a really, really cool thing. Definitely at this price point, 2 thumbs up for having an 8-lug drum for a 13-inch snare drum. Now, talking about the strainers, they're just the average standard strainer that you're going to get with a Pearl snare drum. There's nothing special about it. Like I always say, try and whip them off and get some nice pure sound wires just to kind of beef it up, make it sound a little bit more professional. Now, the snare throw-off, that's where I came into a bit of difficulty very early on. Basically, I was given one that was faulty, and I didn't really realize until a couple of months later, so I had to replace that snare strainer. But other than that, it's a very solid drum. I've had it since 2016 and it's really caused no trouble. Now, when we're talking about sound and the variety of sounds you can get from it, well, it's just very, very limited. I think piccolos in general are quite limited, but this one is a little bit more limited than the others, I think, simply because of the price point. In this next demo here, you're just going to hear it with a lot of moon gel on it, basically taking away all that ring. You're going to get a very direct sound. For me, it's a little too boxy, but so you can hear it, here it is. It's not a bad sound at all. I understand why people like it. For me, I find it a little uninteresting. There's not really much going on there. It's a little dull. It definitely does give you those dynamics when you put that moon gel on it, where you can get that nice crack and then you hear very clear ghost notes. Let's get a quick example of that. And as well, the snare drum itself has a good Crosstake. We'll give an example of that too. So I can get those dynamics, the Crosstake, and I can get a nice ring out of it, but the problem is I don't find I can get a very good variety of the whole thing. I have to make certain sacrifices on the way. I want a nice consistent ring that generally you will want off a piccolo. You can get that when you tighten it up to the last in terms of the strainer and in terms of tuning. But then when you go for a buzz roll, you kind of sacrifice that sound because you can't get both at the same time. Let me give you an example of that. So what I want to show you here is the difference between the texture and that piccolo sound that you want to get off the drum. For instance, what I'll do here is I'll do a buzz roll, and you'll notice that it doesn't really form together to make a buzz roll, rather than just being loads of little notes going off at the same time. Check it out. That's not what I want to hear from my buzz roll. That is at a tension that's extremely high here, that I want to get that piccolo sound. That, by the way, this doesn't have any moon gel on it, you're just hearing the drum as it is. So what I'm doing is I'm going to bring down that tension to try and get more of that decent buzz roll sound that I want to get out of a snare drum. Let's have a listen. That's on maybe medium. That's about medium now. So have a listen, see does it make any difference. A little bit better, but again, still not exactly what I want to hear off the buzz roll. What I'll do is I'll knock it back even further. So now I'd say this is at a loose tension in the snare strainer, and we'll have a listen. Now that's what I want to hear from buzz roll, something like that. I would actually want it to be a little less tension there, so I want a bit more buzz, but it's still really nice. I like that. But I'm still sacrificing that high-pitched, ringy sound that I want to hear from a piccolo. And that's where I kind of lose a little bit of faith in this drum, or a little bit of why I wouldn't recommend this drum over something else at the price point. Because if you spend a little bit more, you can get a snare drum, or in this case a piccolo snare drum, that will be able to give you that buzz roll at a very high tension to make that real metal, the pingy, ringy sound that you want from your piccolo, and still keep that nice buzz roll. And that's the difference. In this drum, that's one of the things that I found. I can't do that. Alright, so this is a relatively cheap snare drum. It's $165 in the States. You can pick it up in Europe for about 230 euros. That's relatively cheap in terms of snare drums, but I gotta say, this is the point where you go, oh, for the price point 200, it's pretty good, you get what you want, but you can do better for 200 in terms of the whole vastness of snare drums. What I can say is that they have three varieties of this. One is the steel that we've just after seen here, the other one is the brass, and then the next one above that is the maple piccolo. If I were you, and my advice would be to just stall off and try and save up a little bit more. And we're not even talking about a huge amount more. We're talking about maybe an extra 100. You could get it maybe on a deal at maybe a little less than 100 to go up to the brass snare drum, the exact same size as this, or go up to the maple, which you'd be spending a little bit more on for the maple. But for what you get for that little bit extra money, you're going to get a lot more control, you're going to get a lot more variety that we talked about, where you can play those buzz rolls at a very high tension and still make them sound really good and really full, and still get that ringy crack that you want to get off a piccolo drum. So that would be my advice. It's fine, this snare drum is fine, but you can do better. If you save up just a little bit more money, and it'll be worth it, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. Anyway guys, what I'll do is I'll leave a link down in the description where you can pick one of these up if you decide to go for it. I'll also leave a link for the one that I think you should go for, which would be the brass or the maple. And please make sure that you hit this video a like, ask me a question down in the comment section. There's no problem with that at all. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Anyway guys, take it easy. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye. Guys, hit me up on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, and if you like what you've seen here today, you can see a lot more videos. Just click on any of them here on the screen.